Hello there, what's going on everyone? Today I'm using Tabletop Admiral to build a Legion list, and I'm going to be building a list using Lyn and Luke, two melee heavy commanders, and we're going to try to combine them into a little bit of a melee force and use some of the new stuff that has come out for Legion. I also want to remind you guys there is another round of the giveaway going on right now. You can win a $25 Amazon gift card for an expansion of your choice. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. So we're going to start off, we're going to add Luke and Lyn, and I'm going to go over the upgrades that we're going to add to them because they're both a little on the expensive side, but when you kind of compare them to some of the more expensive Imperials, they don't suddenly seem quite that expensive. So for Luke, we are going to give him the auto-include force reflexes. This one's very, very important. So he can get his free dodge token. And we are also going to go ahead and give Luke the awesome recon intel. Recon intel primarily because he is a melee character, and we're going to, I mean, he has a ranged attack, so does Lyn, right? But we want him to be able to get closer to the battle more quickly. And to do that, it's a free move, and it's only 2 points. So I figured, why not? I actually really, really like recon intel. So, especially on certain deployments where you may end up just barely being on a piece of terrain and you want to move them a little bit farther. Now, Lyn, we're going to put a lot of upgrades on Lyn. Lyn is going to be deploying pretty far in with Infiltrate, so I'm going to give her Commanding Presence because she may end up being a little bit farther away from a lot of our other troops, so Commanding Presence is going to extend her range. So this way she's more likely to be able to actually issue orders to folks. Whereas Luke, I don't think is going to need anything like that. Now, for training, I think we have to give her, well, I think this is an auto-include for Lyn. It's duck and cover. So when she gets shot, she can just take a suppression, which gives her an extra die with danger sense. It's just really, really good for Lyn. I'm also going to give Lyn recon intel as well because it's different. It works differently on her. She gets to deploy wherever she wants. But if I don't end up deploying first, I can still deploy outside of range 3 and move in a little bit with recon intel. This one gives me a ton of flexibility. If my opponent ends up like placing a unit that kind of denies me access to an objective, I can deploy just outside that objective and then move in. So that one actually works out really well. Recon intel is one of those things that I just want to keep using and keep using and keep using. Now, it does come in a lot of different things. You're going to get it in the Imperial Royal Guards and in the Wookiee Warriors and in Lyn. So if you got like a lot of those different expansions, hopefully you'll have enough copies of recon intel to go around. And of course, we're going to give her our pistol config, and we'll decide which one of these we want to use where she deploys. If she is able to go first, then I'll probably put her a little closer and give her the pistol config depending on the terrain. But more likely, I'll go with the rifle config, so she's a little bit, a little bit more well-rounded there. But it kind of depends on the board and where I'm able to put her, and if I'm able to deploy first or not. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a fleet trooper. I like the fleet troopers for holding down objectives, especially if I can get some other troops up there first to kind of lock them down, then move the fleet troopers up. They're just really good for being able to stand by and be, just kind of hold down a place. So I'm going to put the scatter gun on there. They have the 2 red, so just have a really, really strong, amount of dice. And we'll add the extra fleet trooper as well. So that's going to give us lots of dice, like crazy, crazy amounts of dice. And that's all we're going to put on the fleet troopers. And then I'm going to add Rebel Troopers. I'm going to be adding some of my favorite upgrades to these guys. Rebel Troopers with the Z6, my favorite upgrade in the game so far. Still, I mean, it's in the core set, but I still love it. Absolutely love the Z6. And we're going to add an extra Rebel Trooper to each of them. And honestly, if you are trying to do like a nice Z6 build, you can get away with easily. You can get away with not using the extra Rebel Trooper, because they're still effective down to having only 2 guys in there, or 2 troopers in this list, because the Z6 just adds so many dice. So if you are trying to skim points in list building, I think it's perfectly acceptable to do a Z6 without the extra Rebel Trooper, but I'm doing it here anyway. And the other thing I'm going to add is I am going to add fragmentation grenades. This is my favorite of the newer upgrades. It's giving you surge to crit. They don't have any offensive surge for the rebels, so this is not just a minor upgrade. This is a huge upgrade to the rebel troopers if you're able to get, in range 1 of somebody. Now, with the resurgence of all kinds of things that are going on in the game right now, like Pathfinders being able to, and Jyn Erso being able to deploy much closer to you, your chances of being in close range in range 1 are much more likely. Also, with the transport rules coming out, in these vehicles being able to drop troops at much closer distance, you're going to have things like snowtroopers that are going to be moving up on you really, really quickly. You're much more likely to be in close range of enemy forces. So I think fragmentation grenades, while they may not have seemed that great for rebel troopers initially, I think they're going to be tremendous on rebel troopers in the next couple of months. So in the habits of that, I'm going to be using them. I'm actually going to duplicate this unit 2 more times. So we're going to go with 3 rebel trooper units with the fragmentation grenades in the Z6. I'm really, really strong here, and 1 fleet trooper. So we're going to have 4 core units in this build. And then after that, we're going to do some other special forces stuff. So I will start out with a strike team, Rebel Commandos strike team. And we will go ahead and give this one a lot of little upgrades. This is going to be our sniper. So we're going to be able to deploy this sniper pretty far back. And I'm also going to give them recon intel. They already have Scout 2. So this is actually going to change them up to Scout 3 with the recon intel. Now this one's optional too, but it's just so cheap. It's really easy to put on units. If you happen to need an extra point or whatever somewhere else, you can totally drop this one. But that one is really, really fun. I like just giving them extra flexibility, especially if they need to deploy somewhere where they're vulnerable, but then move to a place where they're protected, maybe because of deployment zones. A lot of this is very much terrain dependent, but I like that ability. And now for their upgrades here, I'm going to give them duck and cover, help them stay alive with their low profile. Anytime they get shot, I can just take a suppression, and then I'll have heavy cover. So that one is really, really nice. And then for comms, I am actually going to give them the HQ uplink, so they can issue an order to themselves. And that's just because they're probably going to be back maybe in one corner of the map, and they will very quickly be out of range of my other commanders. Even Jyn, with her long range for commanding presence, I'll still probably be out of range, depending on how it goes. And if not, well, then I can just still use it whenever I want, just so I have one extra unit with an order token. And then for our last unit, we're going to go with a Rebel Pathfinders unit. These are also new, and they're going to get they're going to get in this, and we're going to go for their heavy weapons. We're going to be adding POW as our heavy weapons here. Now, POW is a leader. So he's not the one that requires you to have to, you do not have to exhaust POW to go ahead and use POW. Now, one thing that's interesting about that is I'm not actually going to give them one of their long or short range config. Now, you can totally change this up if you want, but I would rather roll 2 dice with them, and I think I'll be able to deploy them in a place that they won't have a problem getting into range. So that's kind of the mindset here. Granted, if you want to give them the short range config, just drop HQ uplink off of your Rebel Commandos and then give them that. But I'm thinking it's more likely I'll be getting into range 3 and taking advantage of the stronger, and I have a range 4 shot anyway with POW. So I feel like this is a little bit less worthwhile because of that. Now, for some of my other upgrades, I'm going to give them duck and cover. Again, because they have danger sense, duck and cover is going to be crucial. And I will also give them recon intel. And that's another reason. Like if I deploy just outside of range 3, I can just immediately turn around and scout and then move into range 3. so I can roll the 2 white dice instead of just 1 white die. So that's kind of my reasoning on why I'm not taking the config. I'd love to hear what you guys think, though. Would you change things around? Do you think they need to have the config on the Pathfinders? I mean, range 4 is respectable, but at the same time, I've got snipers already, and I've got POW already. So I have a couple of long range attacks already, and we're going to be getting up and close and personal in this list anyway, so I'm really not as concerned with the long range game as I am with the close range game. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So let's go look at command cards. This one I think is going to be pretty standard. I'm going to use each of their regular pips. I'll use Luke, Return of the Jedi. I will use Complete the Mission for Jyn. I will go with my allies, the Force, for Luke. And another thing that's nice about this one is when a friendly trooper is issued an order, that'll also apply to things like HQ uplink. So that's also a nice one. And then we'll go with Jyn's. Trust goes both ways. It'd be cool to have Jyn and Luke getting teamwork and working together. That one will be fun because Jyn can then give Luke an aim and a dodge. So Luke, that's an extra way for Luke to get dodges, and then it's also a way for if she's not able to do that, then I can always have Luke get his free dodge, which gives her one as well. So I think that also kind of gives some cool synergy there. And then we'll go with Son of Skywalker, one of the best cards ever, and then Rebellious, which is always a tricky one, and it's I think this is a very fun one to be able to do, but I very much like it, and I like the whole concept of getting lots of close range nasty damage. Now, I will be honest, you could easily find yourself, whoops, I think I have 2 copies of standing orders in there. I did not need that. You could easily find yourself losing a commander and then losing access to a lot of your command cards. So it's totally conceivable that you may want to drop one of these cards. And so like Return of the Jedi is nice, but maybe it's not the best with Jyn, and because maybe you don't want to remove suppression tokens. Granted, this says may remove suppression tokens, and since he's starting in the back with the other Rebel troopers, most likely it's going to work with them. I like that one for him. Complete the Mission, maybe you want to do that one. I don't, I like all of these in this particular build right now. But it does make sense in some cases to drop one of these commander-specific cards for at least one generic, in case you do happen to lose your commanders, especially in a build like this where they are going to be melee heavy. They're very likely to be shot at very quickly in the game. You may lose one, if not both, and you kind of don't want to be stuck having to do standing orders all game. So even having like a 3 or a 2 pip generic can sometimes let you go first on that clutch last turn and let you really, surprise the enemy. Because, we're getting to a point now where your command hand isn't necessarily always the same. It's like people won't necessarily know what you're bringing just because you bring one commander. We have lots of generic cards now and lots of, multi-commander and operatives also. And so you can definitely have very interesting command hands. But that is the list, guys. There's, Luke and Jyn. Hopefully we'll be able to do some good. This looks like it'll be a fun list to go, to bring in, get some melee attacks on your opponents and have a good time. So that's what I've got for you today. I just wanted to thank you guys all so much for watching. I also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. You guys definitely help make this all possible. And stay tuned for some more Legion stuff coming up soon. Hopefully we're going to get a Clone Wars actual announcement soon so we can actually see how that is going to be. Very, very excited for that. I imagine we will see something like that at Adepticon, and maybe even, if not then at Star Wars Celebration. All right, that's all I've got for you guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.